Hey there, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's good to see you. I might be taking off doing some sprints on my other channel, but I thought I still might come on over here and hang out with all of you a little bit before I wind down into the evening of life things I want to take care of. The imagination to improvise. Are you using it to your advantage? Let's check it. Welcome on back, everybody. Welcome on back. So it's been a while. I took last week off-ish, kind of didn't put my face on camera a lot last week and recharge my batteries. And one thing that kept coming up again and again was one of my favorite quotes. Like, my two favorite poets of all time. Number one is Anne Sexton. Admire her poetry so much. And then her friend Sylvia Plath is a close second for me. Always has been ever since I was a lit major in college. And one of Sylvia's quotes that has always stuck with me is, and by the way, everything in life is writable about it if you have the ongoing guts to do it and the imagination to improvise. The world's worst enemy of creativity is self-doubt. Now, we've heard other people say very similar things. Hey, Jess, it's good to see you. How are you, hun? If you're here live or on the replay, drop a like, subscribe, invite a friend. Let's see how you've been doing lately, my friends. So I really do think that Sylvia found freedom in her imagination. If you know how dark both Sylvia and Anne's lives were, you understand why they wrote the poetry that they wrote. They were very, very early modernist as far as like about a century ago, a little bit sooner than that. But they both spoke to the female condition. Glad you're doing good, my friend. Glad you're doing good. And specifically about how, 50 to 100 years ago, it was starting to be okay and acceptable for women to have certain jobs. Ladies of letters are now poets, short story writers, children's books writers, if you get what I mean historically, if you want to see where that passage of the written female word goes through time. But it's not just the imagination to improvise as a female. I mean, I think my brothers did a ton of it. My brother George was like, "Hi, Brandy, it's so good to see you." My brother George, may he rest in peace until I get there to help him raise some cane later on in life. Anywho, he was very good at causing shenanigans because that was his way of using life's imagination to improvise. We could go out to eat. Now, mind you, he lived mostly in the Winston-Salem area of North Carolina for most of my teenage and adult life. Before that, he lived in Georgia for a bit, and before that, around the Asheville, North Carolina area. So he kind of lived back and forth between the two states. But when he was living in Winston-Salem, nobody up around where we lived in Cumberland knew who he was, but he could come and have dinner with us at Denny's in the middle of nowhere, USA, Appalachia, and he would be talking to the waitress as if they had known one another forever. I'm so glad to see this community hugging on each other so much. It's so uplifting to be able to see you all do that. Thank you for being so kind to each other. And that was kind of why my brother George was the way he was. His imagination to improvise always was for the sole sake of putting a smile on somebody's face. Now, mind you, I think the reason why when it came in particular to waitresses and cook staff, that was maybe him, because our mom was a cook most of our lives. That's what she did for money for a living. So I don't know if that was just him treating people in food service nice because mom was in food service. That could be it. But his way to improvise would be, if I could put a smile on your face, I had a good day today. And a lot of us feel that way about many actors. I think the world has become a much, much darker place since Robin Williams was lost 10 years ago. Why no sprints tonight? Jenna has some life things to take care of. Good to see you, Jersey. I had to take this Wednesday evening and next Wednesday evening off from sprints because I have some life things going. I miss you all too. I was back last night, so there's a fresh replay from last night, and I'll be back Friday. We're going to go long Friday night because I took Wednesday night off. Yeah, I needed the break. Easing back in for sure. But more importantly, actors like Robin Williams, improv was kind of part of his comedy. And yet I'm going, we all needed Genie. Will Smith, you did a good job. Your rendition is your rendition. And as far as Will Smith characters go, his Genie's pretty awesome. Robin had a special sauce that even Will Smith admitted, I'm not Robin, and I'm honored to even try, but I'm not Robin. And Robin leaned into that improvisation is the spice of life. If you have a weird idea, lean into it harder. That's something that a stage director I used to work with in college used to say for my stage management track. Madison's good to see you. Thank you. All the hugs, my friends. And then taking it kind of back even to Sylvia's world, if you've never read any of Sylvia Plath's works, on whom the title for this is based, I guess it's down there for you guys. The title's up there for me. It's down there for you guys. StreamYard versus YouTube. Anyway, if you've never read any of Sylvia Plath's works, definitely, with some caution, go and read The Bell Jar. Oh my God. It's a good read. It's very fearless, but she's going to address all of her personal challenges. And also, something big in her career was, do you succumb to self-doubt or do you keep going through? My Kickstarter failed last month. Big time. My Kickstarter failed last month. So I had an option. Do I call it quits or do I say, whatever, let's keep going? I said, whatever, let's keep going. To the tune of, I hope to have all 5 books off to the vendors by the end of the year, one at a time. It's very much just because I slipped, just because I fell into the water this time, doesn't mean that I'm not going to next time, right? And the imagination to improvise is definitely in play right now with my business. I'm kind of looking at ways I can still be of service to others, because I definitely enjoy being of service to others, but also while getting a little bit more balance. And this too, it'll happen when it is meant to. I'm a very firm believer, as a typical Virgo. We have issues with perfectionism, but at the same time, as the healer of the zodiac, we are more readily to go for others. Don't worry, it's okay, it'll work out. And therefore, my lesson is to apply that to myself. And I'm definitely not necessarily eating my own words in a negative way, but if you consider that, life's plate is a nice, healthy buffet. Right now, I'm putting salad, all the good salad-like things on my plate of life to try and help refill that well a little bit. So yeah, in order for it to happen when it's meant to, I had to go ahead and just say, sometimes also this is the slingshot being pulled back further into position. I do archery. Sometimes this is, actually I have a story about this. Sometimes this is, you get the bullseye, the arrow falls out of the bullseye, and you get so angry that it fell out of the bullseye, you reload and you get a prettier shot that stays in the bullseye. Yes, I've done that. I was so mad. I'm sure everybody back at camp heard me scream the Irish profanities that I did when my nice crisp bullseye fell out a couple years ago. But yeah, Madison, for your AP Lit exam, you had to, oh yes, I've actually had to teach this as a former advanced placement Lit teacher to a bunch of farm kids in West Virginia. The responses I got were very insightful. very insightful, more than I probably ever needed, and it will work out. Exactly. I'm trying to have very much this attitude. Do as I tell others to do. I tell you all, hey, it's okay to suck it up, to breathe, to, take a moment and collect yourself. And that's exactly what I'm working on doing right now. It's not over. The books are drafted. Why would I give up? It's like not the hardest part is done, but we're this far down the yellow brick road, Brandy. Why would we turn back, my friend? Yeah. That's exactly what a lot of the essays came back to say. In great anatomical detail, down to like what sweat glands they have and we don't. And I'm like, yeah, I just learned more about the human and pig lymph node systems and endocrine systems in an essay than I had ever hoped. Because I had some kids who were even studying, like, to become vet techs and stuff. So they knew that stuff because they wanted to work with farm animals, right? Let's reframe, it failed. It didn't succeed yet. Very much so. But also there's something this was even like, if you look at my old yearbook, I don't even have my old yearbook from high school. Under my senior picture, there's literally a quote that says, failure is the tuition that you pay for success. I know I'm going to fail. I know I'm going to make mistakes. Miranda, hi, honey. How are you? I know I'm going to fail. I know I'm going to make mistakes, but the one thing they can't take away from me is my imagination. I grew up, you've heard me say this probably, during a time when the arts were literally under attack. There's a reason why so few of us who went to school in the 90s and early 2000s had the opportunities that people who even went to school 10 years earlier had, as far as like art classes go. If you wanted to do anything beyond basic drawing and painting, you had to take art club and you had to buy the supplies out of pocket because there just was no funding for that. Oh my God, choir. Getting funding to do anything for choir was a nightmare. The choir I belonged to in high school used to go to Disney every year and participate in their stage choral shows. It got so expensive to fund just the home program that they had to cut the Disney trip completely because of board funding, basically saying all the money that you were using to fundraise for your Disney trip is now paying for your new uniforms, is now paying for your bus trips to adjudications. Yet the football team gets everything they want handed to them because Fort Hill High School, what is Fort Hill High School's football ranking these days? Fort Hill High School football rankings. They were like number 1 in the state 8 years in a row or something weird like that. Undefeated. Yeah, their last season, they were completely undefeated. Maryland Class 1A. So you can tell where most of the money goes at that school. Not to the choir and the band. Definitely so. Rachel, hello, hon. It's so good to see you. I hope you're enjoying your week. All the hugs to you. Jess, very much so. There are a few who thinks you're destined to fail, and you know what? Tell them 2 words. Watch me. Thank you. And then leave. I guess it's 4 words if you want to add the optional thank you. Because the thank you confuses them, As my choir director, Mr. Thompson, rest in peace, used to say, be nice to them. It confuses them so hardcore. King of dealing with Karens right there. He used to deal with stage moms. Brandy, for Art 1 and Art 2, you had to pay a total of $100? Now, let me guess. He's not going to do anything like super extravagant. He might do acrylics, watercolors, basic clay, nothing over the top. Because at most, that's probably covering just base products. So much. Rachel, you had to fundraise for Disney too, but you had a spoiled band. See, even though our football team is Class 1A, pretty highly ranked. The band gets like zero funding, which I don't think is right. Especially, since the band has to go with them everywhere and they have to pay for buses too, and that's expensive. Every year that Fort Hill does really, really well, they have to go down and play at M&T Stadium in Baltimore. That's a 3-hour bus ride. That's an expensive bus ride, and the band has to pay for it every year. The football team doesn't pay for it, but requires them to go. Jess was going to look it up for you, but yeah, you would think I didn't care anything about high school football, so that's why I didn't know it off the top of my head, but you would think I would know these things. The football teams, even up in Canada, sounds like it has all the funding. Yes. Oh, I'm sure they do. I'm all for extracurriculars, but there's an entire section of kids in the arts getting ignored. Largely, very, 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 very much. Very much. Don't know school that doesn't even start until the 20th. Yeah. See, most schools here in Maryland, unless they have a waiver, looking at you, Allegheny and Garrett County, because you can become snow globes, unless they get a waiver, they don't even start until Labor Day weekend, which that feels like a late start. And then they got to be done by, I think, June 15th. So yeah, that means very few holidays, which in a state where we have as many Catholics and Jewish people as we do, makes no sense because they deserve the holidays off. See, the football team, you would think that the band, especially if it's a really good band, would get all the credit they deserve. Because, oh my God, instrument repairs probably cost about as much as it does to upkeep that stadium. If you were to have a band go through and either repair or replace all of their damaged instruments, oh my God. You would probably need a minimum of $10,000. I kid you not. Depending on what's busted. Jess, niece starts kindergarten tomorrow. Oh, yay! How did that go? I hope it went well. I know a couple of other author tubers whom have younger kids. We're talking elementary school. Said that their kids were starting, if not this week, then next week. I know a lot of the schools I used to work for in West Virginia either started this week or next week too. See, band nerds unite, man. I had to pick one or the other. We couldn't afford both choir and band in my house, is what my parents said. I can't afford to pay for your band uniform and your choir stuff every year, because some of those choir performance outfits, they're $500 a pop. Because they're like, now I didn't do show choir because their costumes are more expensive, but even just, Fort Hill remodeled theirs 2008, like right after I graduated in 2005, a couple years after. And they modeled theirs after some southern schools because we're so close to Virginia. And they do indeed look like a 2-year college stadium. When I drive, Fort Hill's a little hoity-toity. We don't call ours Fort Hill Stadium. It's Greenway Avenue Stadium at Fort Hill High School. So that's how collegiate they want to make it feel. Your high school remodeled the football stadium. Yeah, that seems like a popular thing to do in the mid to late thousands, early aughts. We're a little off topic, and that's totally okay because it kind of loops back through. But at the same time, even those of us who had to contend with these pasts where, yeah, that is hoity-toity. They gave themselves a title. Even those people whom are athletes, because I don't begrudge anyone who's an athlete. Some of my athletic students, when I was a teacher, were some of my most driven students. Now, mind you, some of it was because some of them knew the only way they were going to college was if they had at least a 3.5 or higher and played 2 or 3 sports to get scholarships and stuff. So that was a large part of it for some of them. But at the same time, I just want to see the artsy kids, the crafty kids. Oh my God. If I taught at a vocational high school, and even that high school did not have what the imaginations of all of my students needed. They had nursing programs, but they had no cosmetology. And I'm like, that's a whole sector of, easy jobs and whatnot. Squirrel, very much squirrel. But you can see where I think at large, it's not just the education system that's kind of making us feel like we don't have much of an imagination to draw on, but how much of life in general has really made us not want to improvise. It's a different kind of hard to live outside of your comfort zone. It's not easier, and what you're doing right now is not easier. It's merely a different kind of hard. The old phrase of the grass is greener on the other side, no, it's really not. The grass is greener where you take the time to sit down and actually pay attention to growing it. At least that's what my grandmother always said, and she was a farm girl who married a farmer. And the only reason why the farm failed was because arson. So I guess there's something to be said of letting your imagination run wild. If you haven't watched the movie Secret Garden with Maggie Smith in it, specifically that version, maybe you need a revisit. That could be some cool homework this week. What are the lessons of improvising and imagination that those children go through in that movie? Because maybe those are the skills we forgot when we were taught to behave. Take care of yourself. You've been worth it from the beginning.